pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair Warden, my mic was not on. They might want to check our mics. My mic was not on. Might want to check your mics.
I just heard it.
Yes, but mine was not.
Ms. Sawyer, may we have a roll call, please? Present.
Here.
Here. Here.
Present.
Here.
Present.
And Board Member Houston, would you read the ethics awareness statement, please?
Welcome to this meeting of the Elizabeth City Pasquotank Board of Education. It is my duty to remind members of this board that it is your responsibility to avoid all conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest in accordance with Chapter 138A of North Carolina General Statute. As public servants, it is our duty to continually monitor, evaluate, and manage our personal, financial, and professional affairs in such a way as to ensure the absence of conflicts or potential conflicts. Does any member know of any conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest with respect to any matter coming before the board this evening? Let the record reflect that no conflicts exist.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Before we take action on the approval of the agenda tonight, I would like to ask board members, I move that we allow public comment to break policy in not the 20-minute length, but in the number of speakers that we allow. We've had several members beyond 5. That is our normal policy. 5 members, 4 minutes apiece equals 20 minutes. It is my feeling that people have come tonight, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak if they so desire, taking into consideration that they will still have the amount of minutes that is allowed, which means that we may go beyond the 20 minutes. So at this time, I'd like to move that we amend that policy so that if necessary, it will go beyond 20 minutes, if necessary.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay? And a roll call vote on that, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and with that change, that is why I wanted to wait on the approval of the agenda. So I need a motion from the floor to approve the agenda at this time.
I just have a question. The amendment, is that just for tonight's
Just for
meeting?
tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Not for moving forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve.
Okay. Had a motion from Ms. Houston. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn to Interim Superintendent Ingram for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, members of the audience. We are in the process of accreditation through Cognia. That's the name of the accreditation agency that we have. We'll begin meeting with them mid-year. I think our first visit is December. It should be a virtual visit. There are some things that we are working on to provide for them sometime before December, hopefully mid-November. We do, I've got a couple of documents. I meant to put them at your chairs. I apologize. One is a whole child concept based on at least it's mentioned in here, it's a research brief from the Learning Policy Institute, a gentleman that I am familiar with, Dr. Barnett Berry, is currently with the University of South Carolina. He's worked with Linda Darling Hammond, who's formerly of Stanford University, is now the State Board Chair in California. I understand we have some of these activities in our schools, but there is a considerable amount of grant money available to do these things. And I have shared this with some principals. We have had an initial meeting with Dr. Berry with some of our principals. It's not something that I would require, but it's something that we absolutely should consider. It's my understanding that North Carolina is in full support of this program. In fact, they have dollars set aside at the state level for it. There are currently 11 counties participating. Elizabeth City Pasquotank is not one of those. I would like to consider that we become one of those. Some of you read in the newspaper my comments about the testing program and things of that nature. And I didn't put that in such a good light. And it's not that I'm against testing in and of itself. It's just that I don't think it's fair to use a one-time high-stakes test to categorize a school, a teacher, a district, if you will. And there are a lot more things that are far more important in a child's life. So whole child education is one of those things. And you'll see some history about this in this research brief. And I hope it's a little bit technical, but it's I think beneficial for you to know. This, as you know, we have a retreat on Saturday, October 9th. Think about some of your answers and what you would say and be ready for discussion on October 9th with that. So hopefully you'll get a chance to look at it. I've been through this and conducted it myself actually with other school boards. It can be very productive, I think. So I think we'll have a good day on the 9th, or good half day rather. As a reminder for everyone, we have a vaccine clinic for students 12 and up Wednesday, the 29th of September. That's this Wednesday from 3 to 5 p.m. at the River Road Middle School. And this day happens to coincide with a 3-hour early release day for our students. So we will have a vaccine clinic for students 12 years old and up this Wednesday, September 29th from 3 to 5 at River Road Middle School. Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools Custodian/Maintenance Appreciation Day is October 2nd, and October is also National Principals Month. We share a heartfelt and sincere appreciation for these team members. Having been a principal, I understand how difficult it is, and while I have done some custodial duties in my past, as a principal and even before, I know that when the custodian's out, how challenging that can be for a school. And quite frankly, our custodians often go further than the job requirement. They build relationships with kids. And I know that my wife, the retired social worker, she's gotten lots of valuable information from custodians about kids and could check in on them as a result. So I view everybody that works in public schools as a teacher, regardless of the role. So I really appreciate those folks. And also, Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools is pleased to recognize National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is going on right now from September 15th through October 15th. So, Madam Chair, board members, and members of the audience, that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Ingram. Now I need a motion from the floor to approve the minutes from our previous meetings and a second.
I move to approve the minutes from our previous meetings, August 26th, I'm sorry, August 23rd, let me put my glasses on. August 23rd, September 1st, September 2nd, September 20th, and September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our previous meetings. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we move on to the public forum portion. And all right, we're going to begin with Mr. Anthony Sawyer. And Mr. Sawyer, I want to remind you, you have 4 minutes in which to speak. I also want to remind you that as part of our policy, we do not respond to anything you have to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we can ask questions if we need clarification, but other than that, no debate or discussion.
Thank you very much.
Coaching staff, I was delighted. Since that time, we have been ranked number 5 or better out of 113 teams in this 2A state. Back in March of this past year, the board started doing recommended background checks for the volunteers. And after the spokesperson dug deep into my past, going back over 25 years, recommended to the interim superintendent that I not be able to volunteer anymore. It's devastating me. I've been there 17 years. And one of the big arguments I have is I've been driving the cab for 15 years. I just got approved for the 15th year. This is my cab license. I just got 2 weeks ago. We go through a very intense background check. I'm nervous, I'm sorry. Go through a very strict background check. The city police department and the SBI as well. They've never denied me. It makes no sense that I can pick kids up every morning, more than ever now, that the bus drivers can't handle the loads. We got more business now. I'm taking kids to school, and they won't, in my own supervision, and they won't allow me to go out there on the football team. I've been there for 17 years. It makes no sense. That's why I'm here. I'm fighting because what they did was wrong. That's why I'm here. When something's taken from you, you fight for it. Taking that football program away from me is just like snatching a child out of my hand. I got 3 nice rocks here, and we're gonna get more. I just hope I'm there with them. Like I said, it don't make any sense. Real quick, 5 years ago, I got real sick. I had a severe diverticulitis. They had to take over half of my colon out. I wore a bag for 7 months. And it was the longest 7 months of my life. Well, I healed good enough to get it reversed. My surgeon told me, he said, hey, we're ready to reverse this so you can get that bag off. Well, at the time, we were in a deep playoff run like we are every year. I put off that surgery for 3 weeks because I didn't want to be in the hospital doing our playoff run. I put that team before my own life. And to have it stripped from me, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. We all have. But everything was 25 years or older, and they were misdemeanors. The application process asks, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I have not. If you go back 26 years on anybody, you're going to find something. Unless you're Jesus Christ. I ask that this board, somebody on this board, make a motion. If not tonight, very soon, I'm tired of missing these games. Make a motion to allow me to return to my team, to make a motion and vote on it. If it dies, I'll leave you alone. but I was denied this. I asked for this appeal, I was denied it. The board chairs told me, well, maybe things would have went better if Antonio Moore, the head coach, and the AD were here to speak on your behalf. They were told by the interim superintendent and the spokesperson to leave it alone, stay out of it. So you got this side saying to stay out of it, and you got Ms. Warden saying they should have been here. I got nowhere. I have been frustrated for 8 months. It's awful. I love that program. It's not a team, it's a family. We pray together, we worship together, we eat together. We go see each other in the hospital.
Mr. Sawyer,
Yes, ma'am.
your time is up.
Okay, well, I hope I made myself clear. And please, somebody make a motion, not tonight, in the near future. And vote. Just give me a vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Page?
Hi, my name is Barbara Page. Yeah,
Could you wait just a minute and let? Are we good? Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Page. I just didn't want you to.
okay. Yeah, I'm a bus driver, and I speak on behalf of a lot of bus drivers out here. One of the issues that we have is with these students refusing to wear their masks. Now, in school, they wear their masks, but when they get on the bus, they don't want to wear the mask, and it's like you have to fight with them to keep the mask on. Some of them don't wear it properly, they want to wear it under their nose, and then when you confront them, then they want to give you a hassle, okay? And we need more support from the school with this. And we have problems with students using these foul language at bus drivers, you know, and or they want to get up in your face. And we don't need that. My job is to transport them to and from school. I don't need anyone standing up in my face giving me a hard time because I'm not getting paid for that. And we need more support from the school on that. I mean, we write up, and the question is, how long does it take the school to respond to our write-ups on a student? That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Mr. Coffey? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay.
Greetings, Dr. Ingram, Warden, honorable board members, and your staff members. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for the audience being here as well. My desire to express some thoughts I've had since August 10th. This is the format that's presented to me. I don't have the line of communication I desire that I'm used to, Terry, but this is what I've got, so please afford that time, and I thank you for it. My name is Mitchell Coffey. I'm a Master Sergeant, retired from the Air Force Reserve. Been in your appointment for 4 years. It's my 4th year as your instructor at Pasquotank High School. And I'm proud of that. I came in with a job. I really want to leave with a job. I hope that's going to not offend anybody, what I'm going to say. There is a problem with communication. I'm used to having channels of communication from down in the trenches to up on top, and vice versa. There's things that teachers are experiencing as well as administrators that they're not communicating. They're communicating with one another. Nothing is going up to the top. I was trained as a first sergeant where I have to assess a squadron, my squadron, ones that are going to go flying around to Afghanistan and Iraq, make sure that the morale is good. Ma'am, sir, morale's not good. A number of months ago, it was in March or April, sick leave and supplemental expenditures were somehow abated, and now we're actually back in school again. So I would think sick leave would be back as well. One of the first words that came out of Ms. Crutch's mouth on August 10th was, "There's no longer sick leave available." That floored me. That floored me, flat out. If we're going to be back in school, we all want to be back in school. All right, face-to-face is imperative. Well, there are issues there, all right? When we are exposed to over 600 children with their viruses, not all of them have viruses, but it only takes one. And there we go, we're on sick leave status. But where is this? There are funds that were available to us from the federal government for sick leave. Don't know where that money's gone to. Just for me a second. I love people. I truly do. I'm not here to get down on anybody. I recognize how professional you all are, okay? My views are my views. I'm not representing PCHS, certainly not representing the United States Air Force or the United States Navy. I spent both tours in. They're my opinions, but what bases down is that you have people out there who are really passionate about their jobs. They're passionate. They want to do the right thing, but they're scared. One, a great way to destroy morale, mess around with people's pay, mess around with their health, mess around with their schedules, mess around with uncertainties. And we've got that all happening right now. It sure is. We can minimize some of that, well, morale would improve. It sure will. I mentioned about communication. Doctor, you did a fine job with some of the surveys that you put out. You know, it's seeing the assessment of where we're at. Sometimes you're asking the wrong question. That's why I think a lot of times we don't respond. I was one of those people who did not respond to a survey because the question wasn't asked, do I want to teach virtually? I never saw that question, so I didn't respond. Therefore, you have 79 people responding out of 450 teachers. That might be another indication like that. Let's talk about the HVAC system. We were gone for a year.
Mr. Coffey, your time is up.
Up. All HVAC systems need to be worked on. They do. And this is a filter system. $100. Better than nothing. We have nothing right now.
Ms. Wilkinson.
I'm Kathy Wilson, and
Could we begin again? Because you can begin again.
okay, my name is Kathy Wilson.
I'm
Bus driver.
sorry.
I'm a bus driver. I too have a problem with math, patients. Me telling them have to, don't want. something has to be done there because we're wearing ours and kids just don't care. And I don't know where the gap is. From the school to the student to the parent. Because I'm telling you, I say that, I don't know. My second big thing, the bus issue. Oh, I'm sorry. We do not have enough bus drivers. They don't have enough bus drivers across the country. We are working hard, and I know you guys know we are. Some of us are having to go back and pick up the other half of our students. And I've been driving for 22 years, and it just makes me sad that nobody wants to come, and I think all of you need to come and jump on a bus with us. Exactly what we do every single solitary day. And because it's a hard job. You guys, I don't know, and I'm not trying to put anybody in any kind of thing, but you really do not know what it's like to have 6 little ones or 48 big ones, not knowing what they're going to do behind you. And I don't know what else the country needs to get people to come and drive a bus. I mean, we've raised rate to get people to come. I just don't know. I know we're trying hard here. I know Miss Hill's trying hard. It just makes me want to cry because I've done this for so long. I love doing it. But there needs to be some communication between all of us because we get left out in the dark. We hear things after the fact. And, I haven't seen it in an email or haven't even seen it in parent square or anything like that. I just wanted to get my say because teamwork makes the dream. And if we don't have some teamwork, this isn't going to work. And we're going to have to do something else about transportation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Just to want to ask the question.
Okay.
Are majority of you bus drivers? That are all of you in that corner?
One of the things I wanted to ask, I should have asked for, what age group do you drive? All of them. K through 12. Okay.
Thank you.
And, okay, gotcha. All right.
Excuse me, Chair Warren. What was that last comment? I couldn't hear.
Oh, I asked what age group they drove for.
Right, and then
They
what
mentioned
they were.
He said,
NC
don't forget the
pre-K.
pre-K.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Mr. Rivers.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you. To the bus drivers, thank you for your service. The teachers out there on the front line, thank you for your service. I'm here about leadership, and I don't want this to reflect on Dr. Ingram because Dr. Ingram just got here. I'm addressing the board. I spent almost 21 years in the United States Navy, and I'm a retired Chief Petty Officer. And accountability is at the forefront. The military does not have a lot of discipline like people think it does. It has accountability. Now, we continuously react after situations. We did not And I say we because I'm part of Pasquotank County. But what happened with the disorganization of the buses? Not the shortage of bus drivers, but the disorganization before it started. Great, we're having a COVID clinic on the 29th, 2 months after school has already begun. We continue to hire interim superintendents. Interim. That's not giving stability. We are losing teachers in record numbers. We're losing students. If teachers are going to neighboring counties, they're not moving or leaving because of lack of funding. They're leaving because of lack of leadership. We elected you all to care for our children. And I'm here as a parent because I have a child in this school system. And we do not get a second chance at a child's education. Now, we need this board to make some hard decisions. First of all, you need to give us a plan of when we're going to get a superintendent, not an interim. And again, no disrespect to Dr. Ingram, but Dr. Ingram is an interim. Dr. Ingram is not going to be here a year from now. How difficult is it here for him to even hold anybody accountable what happened 3 months ago before he got here? What are we going to do to stop losing teachers? What are we going to do? You heard these bus drivers say, what are we going to do? Principals need guidance. Teachers need guidance. Our teachers are frustrated, and it's because we are acting reactionary. We are not being proactive. And if I sound a little angry, it's because I am. When my child comes home, and this is not looking at the teachers, because they have a hard job. When I come in here, we're socially 6 feet apart. The teachers are not like that in school. When I go to the administration board up there, I have to talk through a window. When my child comes home and I say, well, baby, what did you learn today? My child says, well, Dad, not much because we have a substitute. We have another substitute. Is my child's A going to be the same A that's equivalent to a child in Virginia, to a child in North Dakota, to a child in South Dakota? Is she going to be ready when she leaves ECPPS to be able to compete in a global economy? Oh, she is, because her parents are going to be there. But there are so many other children out there whose parents need some help. And it starts with the elected officials. We've seen superintendents get contracts and over $300 and some odd thousand paid. Some of you board members wasn't here. Some of you were here. It was a bad contract. We had a superintendent who came in with a plan but moved on to bigger and better things. At no time has this board, to my knowledge, said we're in the process or we're going to go out with looking for a new superintendent. So please, I need to hear from you about a plan, when we're going to get a new superintendent, what we're going to do to stop the teachers from bleeding, what we're going to do to stop losing students, and what you all are going to do different that's going to make it proactive and not reactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivers. Ms. Cooper.
But I don't really know what to say because Mr. Rivers said it all. I mean, he spoke a mouthful, but I do want to say this, Board. I want to say that Miss Amanda, I know that the years that she's been here with us, she has really, truly tried hard to make things happen. I know that she hears I cry. We comes to her and to let her know that how we've been treated on the bus. She knows that it's not easy. And I know it's not easy on her, but we try to do all we can, what she asks of us to do. It's a very few of us. I never seen it like this before. No, I have not been driving longer than some of these drivers have. I've been driving for 13 years, but I never seen nothing like this, the shortage of buses. I don't know where they went at, why they not coming, something just not right. But what the few that we have now, we do pull together, and she know that we pull with her. She know that we have her back. We try to have her back. And when we see her, we never hear her yell or holler at none of us driver. She's so calm, but sometimes she has, we seen tears in her eyes because she tries to do what she can with the few drivers that we have. We thank y'all for increasing our pay and all of that, but still, y'all just don't know what we're going through every day, every day, every day, every day. Not only just with her got to show us a bus, y'all just don't know we go through with the principal, and mainly it's the principal. Because every time we tell them about them kids cussing us out, and they even get on the bus and talk about our color. And you know what they tell us? No, you know you can't get the child off the bus. What? No, that's not right. But please, bear with us. We're gonna do all we can, and we hope and pray more drivers will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. And now we have two people who sent in written comments, and Ms. Sawyer is going to read those.
The first comment is from Jason Wise. Interim Superintendent Ingram, Board of Education, and staff. The pandemic has created an impossible situation in regards to the education of our children. The efforts of ECPPS, its Board of Education, administration, teachers, and staff have been remarkable. I am thankful for the dedication to our students and the attempts to navigate such conflicted times with grace and compassion. My comment regards the quarantining policies of ECPPS. I am thankful we have an interim superintendent and a Board of Education who listens to their teachers. Such an open dialogue is healthy, and a willingness to pivot shows a level of care for our teachers and staff that reveals humility and compassion. Well done. Now I believe it is time to have the same willingness to listen to the CDC and to the parents. My son, like many students, was recently quarantined from school for 14 days. It was unfortunate that my healthy yet quarantined junior was not able to receive instruction to assist in completing his assignments. While I am thankful that our teachers' pleas have been heard regarding virtual learning, I am concerned over the length of his quarantine. ECPPS policy, as I understand it, is that following a close contact, he would be quarantined for 14 days with no possibility to reduce that time. However, CDC recommendations state that a negative test administered between days 5 and 7 post-exposure negates the need for quarantine. The prevalence of testing options at home, at urgent care, or through doctor's offices make it silly that we do not follow the CDC guidelines. I would recommend that we allow students to present proof of a negative test administered between days 5 and 7 post-exposure as a means to return to the classroom. I would also recommend that rapid tests be accepted rather than requiring the lengthy process of a PCR test. This simple policy change would mitigate much of our struggle to educate quarantined students, because the vast majority of them, my junior included, would have their length of quarantine reduced by 50 to 64%. Again, thank you for your consideration and your dedication to the health, safety, and education of our students. Jason Wise, parent to PCHS, ECMS, and Northside. The second comment is from Heather Holsinger. My questions are, how long does the school board plan on quarantining kids every time a fellow student tests positive for COVID-19? Does the school board plan to keep taking kids out of school? Why is COVID-19 being treated as a bigger deal than the flu has ever been treated? The flu is way more deadly than COVID-19, but masks were never required during flu season. My name is Heather Holsinger. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to again thank the persons who came tonight to make public comments. Also, those persons who sent in their comments as a written request. I know that times are very challenging at this moment, and we are all facing challenges, each and every one of us. I can assure you that each of these issues will be considered and discussed. And again, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to our consent agenda. The items that we have to take action on, the surplus list that was presented during committee, the Tri-Solutions contract presented during committee, the new Newsela quote presented during committee, and the budget amendments that were presented by Ms. Haynes during the committee meeting. So at this time, I'm asking for a motion from the floor to approve those items.
Make the motion that we approve the consent agenda items, the surplus list, Tri-Solutions contract, the Newsela quote, and the budget amendments from the from the committee meeting on 9/20/21.
Now, second.
All right, we've had a motion and a second to approve these items. Ms. Sawyer, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. And now I'm going to call on Ms. Haynes, who has two items to present. One regarding fundraisers that she's asking for us to take action on, and a copier contract. Ms. Haynes?
Vice Chair Perez, Interim Superintendent Ingram. The first item on the agenda for finance, FBT list of questions.
Does anyone have any questions on either one of those items?
The next item on the FBT 07 is the copy of the new contract for Toshiba. This is a service contract for cost per copy. ECPPS followed the procedure outlined in statewide ITS contract 920. We invited two vendors, both listed on state contract, to do walkthroughs, and after reviewing bids, it was determined the overall cost would be lowest with.
Any questions about that item from the board?
And if there are no questions, that can.
All right. I am going to ask for there to be a motion from the floor to take action on the fundraisers and also the copier contract at this time.
Miss Board, I make motion that we accept FBT-06 fundraisers for the action and FBT-07, that's the copier contract.
Okay. And a
Second.
second? Did I have a second? Rodney? Okay. All right. So it's been moved and seconded that we accept the fundraisers that has been presented as well as the copier contract. If there's no discussion, we'll take a vote. Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
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 Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. Okay, we're going to move on to the transportation update from Ms. Hill.
Good evening, Vice Chair, President, colleagues, being here. I'm just going to go over a few things before I actually start showing you how to do the bus routes itself. Good. All right, basically, we have a lot of bus stop criteria that you need to know before you even get started. One is the distance that that a bus stop is to a student's home that's within 1 mile. The distance between stops can be no closer than 0.2 miles. And we need to make sure that the students' addresses are correctly entered into PowerSchool. If they are not, when we do what we call an upstu, those students will actually get kicked back off the route and have to be put back on. So we have to make sure that is definitely correct. We currently have 39 buses and 47 drivers. We hired one and she starts on Monday. We are currently 25 drivers short for a morning afternoon. And we had 10 people pass the class. And so far, we have 3 that have gone and gotten their permit. So we're keeping fingers crossed on that. The other thing that you would consider before you start building your run is hazardous conditions. Does the stop need to be on the right-hand side of the bus, the door side? Those would be a curve in the road, a median in the road, a 5-lane highway, different things like that that would cause a student not to be able to cross in front of the bus. Is there a safe turnaround down the street that the student might live on? Is it wide enough to get it turned around with the big buses that we have? If it's a private road and we do not have permission from the owners that own it, then we are not allowed down that road either. So that is something you have to take into consideration when you actually start building the routes itself. And of course, it is important to create a bus route to be as efficient as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and get into the TIMs here. And this is our routing software. And we want to make sure we try to put as many students on a bus as possible, but yet keep in mind the length of time and mileage so that we can get as efficient as possible. So I'll start with just displaying a student. These are made-up students with just made-up addresses. So we want to make sure they're correct. We got Jane Sample here, and this is very tiny, that lives here, on this road here. So what we would have to do to create a stop for the student is you would have to go back here, make sure the student's information is correct, 1300 Litch's Corner Road. You would go here, I'm sorry, to create the stop. And the student, we're just making it up. So again, we're going to north side. You would create the stop. Now, if you have runs that are already created, then you would go and find those runs and see which is best suited for that particular stop. What's the closest to it? So run through and pick these buses here. And we'll see that we have a stop here. So there's a bus that's close. So we can find out which bus this is. And then we would actually add this bus stop into the morning run. So you would have to do this for each morning and afternoon. And with the way the bus is most likely going, she's coming down this road, so we would make this stop before she gets to this one. Then you would pick this and go here. That inserts that. Then you have to go and do the same thing for the PM. Once you've done that, now you can go up and assign the student to the bus. And there's several ways that you can do that. You can do it graphically, or you can go back to the screen where you can see all of their information. We're going to do it here graphically. And you're going to load the student, load the stop. You need to pick for morning and afternoon, and you're going to create kind of hard to do here. and then we've assigned the student to the stop. So that's how you would do that part. Now, if you do not have a route built already, then I will show you how you would have to create a route knowing the streets. You would select which school you're going to be working with at the time, and then you're going to load all the stops. These are all the current stops. Some are already on a bus. So at this point, you would actually start to create a run You can give it a specific number if you want. We're just going to do sample here. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to create 314006 run. You need to figure out first, where is the bus leaving from, and then you start your route from there. You also then have to look at what side of the road, if it's a highway, what side of the road is it on? So you need to have Google Maps up so you can make sure you're correct in that so you don't have a student crossing a highway. So that's another piece of the process as well. So we're going to say this driver is going to go into this area up here, and we are going to select a stop. And then we're going to hit next. And then we go to the next stop and hit next. And then you keep going until you add all the students that need transportation. The ones in red currently do not have a bus assigned to it. The red ones do not need a bus. So we're going to make a route for them. So now she's going to leave from up here because there's going to be a turnaround, and she's going to come back in this direction. So you would continue on doing this until you get as many assigned as you need to have done. And then you're going to do this again for a PM run. The same thing in order to make a full route for a bus. And this has to be done for each school, each student, each bus. And then you have to take into consideration if this is up in the Newland area, so that's around the corners. It's not just going around the block like it were to be in town. So you got to really, really look at which way is this bus going to go now? Is it going to come over here and do this one? Or should we send it this way and then come back up and then go this way? So that's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration when you're working on the bus routes itself. Anybody have any questions on that?
Just curious, as you're working on this, do you have multiple people working on this? Or
Just
do
me
you
currently.
you work on this? Okay. Which is, of course, busier at the beginning of because of the student. So you have one person, you're the one person that,
How long does it typically take you to do that?
To do what you saw, just making the one stop for one run, I have to do that again for the PM.
Process is what
The
I'm-
entire process from start to finish, just for one bus, could take an hour or more, depending on the area, and having to go back and forth to Google Maps and making sure we're on the right-hand side of the road and this and that. So that varies too.
So that was just for one.
That was just one student. One run.
May I ask a question? Ms. Hill, how critical is it for the addresses of the students to be correct? And how critical is it for you to know ahead of time definitively who needs to ride a bus and who doesn't?
That is very, very, very important. I can't stress it enough. The addresses have got to be correct. And then I really, truly need this information by the end of the school year so that we can start and prepare. As long as we're preparing and we have it, we are in a better place. We understand students move in, we understand that students move, that's fine. But at least we can get a base started. When you have to create massive amounts at one time, that's a lot. So if you only have 10 or 15 kids that have moved in the last week, that's a little bit easier of a process. So yes, having the students' addresses in there is crucial, especially if we have spent all the time and effort and work into building everything, and then we do an upstu to bring in the new students, which is what that's called. It downloads all the new students that it might have moved into the area, address changes and such. That is very important, because if that is even one number off, it kicks that student off the bus, and now we have to start over.
Right.
So it's
And
very crucial.
I understand, and I felt like I knew the answer to the question. I just wanted everybody to hear how crucial that is. So you really need cooperation from parents, schools, and, to keep information up to date. The other thing, maybe to a lesser extent, and, we're taking a look at that, but not in a front burner kind of way. Do you feel like our district lines, if they were changed or improved in any way, that would help your routing? Or do you know at this point?
It's really hard to say.
Right.
It really is, because I was only here for 3 months prior to the pandemic.
Gotcha. You haven't
So I have
experienced
not
it enough, yeah.
been, yeah, I haven't really been able to experience a smooth, normal school year.
Yeah, sometimes I would just comment in a general way, okay?
Mhm.
I don't want anybody to think that this is the problem, because I don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't.
Historically, school districts are remiss to change attendance zones, except when there's a new school built, and then there's usually a partial change of district lines, that kind of thing. And I don't think we necessarily have that case here, because we're not having to build new facilities. So you should have your basic routes intact. However, how it bears to be reviewed every so often, because you don't know where the migration patterns are, where new neighborhoods are popping up necessarily, where people have moved out of certain neighborhoods into others. Some schools will decline in population while other schools will increase in population, that kind of thing. So it really we need to take a look at it, and we are, from a deeper perspective than just, unloading everything on transportation. The only thing I was trying to point out was, I think it's really important that everybody know that we really need everybody's help with addresses being correct. And some help from our parents making it a definitive decision as soon as they can. I know we all know circumstances change at the last minute, and that's not what I'm talking about. But when someone drags and drags and drags and doesn't let you know, and then 4 days after school starts, oh yeah, my kid's going to ride a bus this year, that kind of thing, it really makes it a little bit more challenging. And to the point with the drivers, I get it. The board did recently approve bus monitors. Now, I have no idea how that would be sustained beyond the immediate, but in 41 years, I've only seen 2 things done in buses. One is we eliminated 16 and 17-year-old drivers, which, quite frankly, I support that, because in this day and time, I don't think we want 17-year-olds in charge of students on buses. And secondly, we added cameras, which may have some effect, but I think that second adult on the bus, if we can get that person, would be very beneficial in helping monitor behavior and mask compliance and things like that. And re-emphasizing the important, but see, what I'm saying is the board has taken these steps. So those are some tangible things that I'm complimenting the board on, because I've quite frankly asked for this sort of thing before with bus monitors, in this first district I've ever been superintendent in where you approved that. So thank you. Anyway, I'm sorry, Ms. Hill. Thank you for those answers. But I guess I asked questions that I knew the answers to already, but I wanted you to voice them.
Right.
The need that you need support as well.
Absolutely. And the other big piece to it also that I run into a lot is kids having 3 different addresses. They hear at mom's house one week, dad's house the other week. So now I've got to make 2 different things. And then I just had this just the other day, actually. In the afternoon, they go to a daycare. So now it's not just one stop. I'm making 3 on several different buses. So that's really hard. That's an added headache as well when you're working with it. And that even takes more time.
Ms. Hill, if I could ask, what would you say is what caused the biggest problem this year? In other words, was it that parents didn't sign up? Was it the pandemic, or was it just?
I think it was a little bit of everything.
Okay. And then you didn't have much time because you've only been, what, 3 months, you said?
No, I was here 3 months prior to last year shutting down in
Oh,
March.
okay, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a few questions. This sounds like a lot. I never knew it takes a lot to do that. So with that being said, with it taking a lot to do, when did we start actually building the routes? Because I heard you mention you said we need to have it by the end of school year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when we start building the routes, the end of the school year? So that only gives you June, well, really through the month of June, July, August. It only gives you 2 months to do this? Is that typical
It's
building
pretty,
routes?
in a normal year.
2
and a
months is all
normal-
it takes to do all of that work? Okay. Wow, that's a lot in that short period of
But
time.
that's also keeping in mind that you've already have established routes from prior years.
That was gonna be my next question.
So yes, so that would be you're adding more kids on. And then if you see that the bus is overcrowded at that point, or it's taking too long of a run, then that's when you start pulling it apart and making a whole nother bus.
That was my next question, because we're in a district that's pretty stable, and I heard Dr. Ingram talk about the routes being the same for such a long time. I would think that a lot of these routes would already be built. And so all we should be doing is adding students who are maybe moving new to the area or moving from elementary to middle or from middle to high school or whatever the case may be. So I was still confused about how we were so at a disarray when the school started this year. Especially when you made the statement that you were here 3 months prior to the pandemic of last year. And last year, we didn't have any buses running. So I would assume, maybe the wrong assumption, that we would have had a lot of time last year preparing these routes. So we didn't face what we faced at the beginning of this, because it was really hectic.
We ran last year, this past
Okay.
school year.
But we didn't
And-
we didn't run a full system, right?
Yeah, well, kindergarten and elementary went Monday, Tuesday,
Right.
Thursday, Friday, and then middle and high did the A and B days.
Right, so we didn't have a
So that
full
had to
run.
create something totally different for that.
Right, okay, cool. So one of the issues, okay, I'm a parent, and my child, and I made a mention in the meeting, my child wasn't added to a route. She's been in the system, she's from kindergarten on up. Obviously, I'm on the board, my wife's in the system, so we follow the emails that come out. And my child was not added to our list on the bus. Even after I mentioned it, when the list first came out, my child still didn't get added to the list.
What school? Northside?
ECMS.
Okay.
She went from Northside to ECMS.
Okay.
Still wasn't on the list. I reached out to the principal, and I think I heard somebody talking about communication. So I believe somewhere communication has been missed at some point, and I don't know how that could be. How do you recommend that being fixed?
That actually is, they have the list, the school sent me the list of the students. And we put on as many students as we possibly could fit on with what buses we had at the time.
Because our bus, I actually saw the bus. Next question. So I listened at the bus drivers, Miss Page and Ms. Wilkerson, been there for 22 years, Ms. Cooper, 13 years. Kind of like we just reached out to the teachers and asked them their opinions. Have we reached out to the bus drivers and asked them what their opinion is or what their ideas to help allow things to flow a little more smoothly, considering they've been on a lot of routes for a long time? And like you were showing the diagram, like you didn't know sometimes we don't know which turn to make or which route to go, what side of the street the bus is on. But those bus drivers have been driving for 22, 13, so many years.
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense to me if I would ask them for their opinion. I don't know if you've done it or not. Have you
Yeah,
done it?
I absolutely do. Every time I build a route, I give it to my drivers and I ask them to drive it. Report back to me any changes that need to be made, because I'm not out there on the road every day. They are. So when I'm done building it, I give it to them. Please go drive it. I'll have them sit in my office and go over it, so that we can make it correct for them.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have for now.
Okay, Miss, so I'm gonna hopefully make your assistant job come to fruition with some of the questions that I'm gonna ask you, because I'm trying to envision your typical day from implementing the route to actually doing the route when school actually begins. So I'm thinking, okay, there's 7 elementary schools. Need to develop those routes from those locations. So of the 39 buses, how many are dedicated to the elementary schools, to the 2 middle schools, and to the 2 high schools? And if I'm not mistaken, the high schools and the middle schools, they share buses. So with that being said, currently, how many students are we looking at that are taking advantage of this program?
Of what, riding the bus?
Yes.
Gosh, I would have to probably say, and I'm just guessing here because all the buses are full. So for elementary, that's about 60 to 70 kids per bus. And then, like I say, middle and high school, that's another 44 to 48 students. So we are transporting quite a lot. If I had to guess, I would say at least half of, if not more than half of our students.
Okay. Part 2, with the middle and the high schools. Now, I'm trying to also envision the beginning and ending of school for students who are coming in on buses. I'm sure you've heard, and we've all heard, where students are getting to school later. So are we working with the principals to make sure that these students, whether it be high school or middle school, if they're doing double routes, that, there's some type of accommodation that gets made for those students, or what is, I don't know if this is specifically for you, but what is the protocol when a bus isn't going to be late just because, there was traffic, but a bus is going to be late because we had to do some type of X route that we didn't account for that particular day. So now this bus will be late coming into school. What is the accommodation, and how often does something like that happen?
Right now, that's an everyday thing because drivers are doing a double, triple runs most days, or every day for some. And as far as the school level, the only thing I do know that they don't do is do mark on tardy. Other than that, I don't know on the school level of what they do.
What is there communication between the principals and your office and your?
Oh, yes, they know when a bus is going to be late.
So I'm thinking, is there a flexibility of schedule that may need to be considered going forward? Like, this is something I guess we would have to talk about eventually. But I'm just trying to consider all the options, because it looks like there's a lot of moving pieces with this. Obviously, there are. There's a lot of moving pieces with getting these buses on track. There's not enough drivers, which is a epidemic across the country. So how do we focus on what we're doing here in Pasco County to ensure that the 7 elementaries, the 2 middle and the 2 high, students are getting there in time enough where if the bus drivers, because we heard what they said, like, we haven't been on buses to know, but we don't. But to hear what they're saying, if they're not getting those, they're doing their best job to get the students to school on time with everything else that goes in between that. So if they're doing that part, how can we, I guess we would have to consider, how can we do it better to make your life a little bit easier and make their lives easier as well? So I think this information provides great insight. There's a lot of work to be done, of course, and I guess you guys all know that. It's not simple, but we got work to do to get this right for all of us.
Ms. Hill, if I could make one comment, please. I hope I don't get in trouble for this. The same way that was stated that maybe we ought to ride the bus, I think the same way is meant that we should go sit in that office one time, because I've been in there and that phone rings constantly with routes being set up, with new kids being set up. And it's a constant in there. And with all that Miss Hill has on her, I only can speak for myself, but I think you're doing a great job, and so are your bus drivers. And I just thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I guess there's one more, and I don't want to play to the audience. But I got a question, and it's with what they said about unruly students and disrespectful students. That, I mean, and I guess it's something we would have to talk about in-house to kind of figure out what do we do in that situation. But, you know, I'm from the school of if you get in trouble on the bus, you may not be on the bus for a day or 2 week, depending on what the situation of the infraction is. So I'm really hoping that if that's one of the problems, if that's one of the issues that the drivers are facing with every day, that we as a team could come to a solution, help solve that for the drivers and for you as well, because we all get it. Nobody wants to be disrespected at their job. So how do we help admin make sure that they're providing the right information, the right tools, you and to the drivers, that that's not going to happen on your route? It may not be perfect, but I do think that's something to address, because respect and then accountability, all that falls into one. And in the pandemic with the mask situation, nobody wants to do it. I completely understand that. We take them off when we're talking. We all drop them by the time we walk out of here. So it's not something that everybody wants to do. But in order for us to keep students in school, it's something we have to do. So how do we do that and make sure that there's respect level on the buses is maintained, and the accountability from the student to the parent is also maintained, so that you do have a, I don't want to use the word smooth, but an easier route from home to school every day. So I think that's something we should be looking at as well.
I agree.
What is the process when someone is, say, written up on a bus that's turned into the principal at the end of the
It's
route?
turned into the bus supervisors that are at each school that are on the bus lots morning and afternoon, so that they can take care of that. And that's typically the assistant principal anyway, and they handle it from there. So the drivers would write them up. So if it happened this afternoon, the drivers would write it up and turn it in first thing in the morning. And depending on the severity of the situation, of course, they would call for help. And, you know, we would, of course, get assistance out there to the bus, you know, say a fight or something like that. But yes, we definitely, and I preach it all the time, write them up, get that paper trail, because if we don't have a paper trail, there's not really a whole lot we can do.
And just like with certain levels of behavior within a school, do we have that as well on the bus, and what level it takes to take a student off the bus?
I haven't read it, but I would, every district I've ever worked in has had a matrix like that, but I haven't read it
Just,
here.
just
so
like in a
I'm assuming we
suspension.
do.
So are we following that? And are we following that at the school level? Because, you know, riding the bus is a privilege, and behavior needs to be addressed in school and on the bus. And they should not have to tolerate being taught that way too. And wearing a mask is a rule. They need to follow that rule as well, because what it turns into is a whole bus and a driver getting quarantined.
Yes.
And that, I mean, that needs to be dealt with, you know, like I said, at the school level. If they're not wearing the mask, they lose the privilege to ride, in my opinion. I mean, that's just ridiculous for them to have to deal with.
Agree.
Is that? Excuse me, Tammy, is there a policy, like a written policy on that in our system? And I don't want to put you on the spot.
So can I? Because I kind of look at they are part of your presentation, okay? So I just want, what did you say that when you've shared a note to the principal, it's passed on to the parent? Is that what you said? Well, you just did.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Doctor.
there any other questions for me?
As I thought, there is a policy that governs that. It's in the policy manual under bus transportation. Safety is important, both around and on school buses. It indicates to please teach your child to look both ways. It goes through all that. Adult supervision at bus stops is encouraged. Riding the bus is a privilege. That is something I heard my entire career. Riding a bus is a privilege and should be treated as such. A school's principal has the same responsibility to discipline students for misconduct on the bus as to discipline students for misconduct at school. Included in this responsibility is the authority to suspend a student's bus riding privileges and/or to suspend a student from school. Now, I taught school for 32 years, and I put students on the bus in the afternoon. I monitored oftentimes out in the bus parking lot. I rode the bus when I was coaching various sports teams. As the adult on the bus, I saw that as my responsibility. Now I'm talking about when I was riding the bus as a coach. I saw it as my responsibility to make sure those students were behaving. It wasn't the bus driver's responsibility. It was my responsibility. They have everything they have to do to drive that big old bus. And I respect the fact that they can drive that bus. I, for one, would not want to do that. I will tell you right now. But I know there are people in here who have that ability. I've been to bus rodeos. I've seen how well you guys can drive. The problem is we have to follow the policy about discipline. If the kids aren't wearing a mask, then they should be taken off that bus until they wear that mask properly. You, as Ms. Hill has indicated, you have a responsibility as a driver fill out the paperwork. I was told all the time when I was in the classroom, fill out the paperwork. That's how discipline takes place. If there is a problem, fill it out. Make sure it goes up the ranks. If it's not taken care of, then you have a complaint. And it will be dealt with as we go up the ladder. So, communication is key. Make sure you fill out those discipline reports. And if they do not follow up, go to your supervisor, and then your supervisor should represent you in the manner in which she will do that. And make sure that those disciplinary actions are taking place. We cannot shirk from our duty to make sure that our students follow the rules properly, because it is all about safety, folks. You've got 40-some kids on that bus that you're responsible for their safety. And every parent who puts their child on that bus expects for their child to get to school safely. That's your responsibility. And it's the responsibility of those who are in charge of discipline to make sure that those students are behaving and doing what they need to do properly in order to ride that bus. So my amen corner is over, but I did want to share that policy with you so you are familiar with it. You can look it up. It is online under the policies to read it for yourself. But I have read the good portion of it, so you know what you need to do. I suspect you already knew what to do. Continue to do that. And Ms. Hill, you follow up. I know you're supporting your drivers because you cannot afford to lose any.
Absolutely, I do. And I would like to say thank you all for coming out. Thank all you drivers that might be listening at home. I appreciate you more than you will ever, ever, ever know. You are amazing, and what you do every day for me and the school system is amazing. And I appreciate you, each and every one. Thank you.
Ms. Hill, I do want to say that I appreciate you and these workers back here that did the bus rodeo or whatever it's called, and your little dances you were doing out there. I want to thank you all. I don't know how much luck we had, but I know you guys tried. Thank you.
Ms. Warden, I just had a quick question as a follow-up as well. And,
Is that for Ms. Hill?
no, it's actually possibly for Tammy. And I'm thinking along the lines of the Chromebooks. Like, do we have a contract that the bus riders, whether it be the parent, the student and the parent must sign as far as proper etiquette while on the bus to kind of, we're outlining what your behavior should be. And so then when we fall into the penalty phase, if you don't meet these guidelines, as far as what the outline it should be, the etiquette should be rather, this is what will get you off the bus. And if the parent and the student are both signing this particular contract, they're committing that they will follow those behaviors. So we won't have the disrespect or the fight. And I apologize for having my back to you guys, but I guess it's the way we're set up. But as I'm thinking about it, if that is in place, this way we can make sure that once you sign the contract, you said that you're going to be a model bus rider, whatever that term should equal. And if it breaks any of these rules, then we can go into the penalty phase of what happens if you did not do that. So it's just something that I'm just, thinking of as we look to how we're going to address that going forward.
Well, I do know that we do have, and I'm going to correct myself on one thing. That's from a district handbook. That policy is from a district handbook. So just to correct that.
I want to
So we do not currently have a compliance agreement for bus riding. Is that what you're referring to? No. Still, not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. That is something that I was just speaking with John Liney that we can consider possibly, but we do not have it at this time. Right. I did want to share that there is policy that we hopefully will adopt this evening that addresses mask compliance and the disciplinary actions that will be placed behind that. So, but the information that Chair Warden shared is from the district handbook, and it is on the website, and it was shared with parents.
So I do want to piggyback on what you guys are saying right now. So what I'm hearing from the bus drivers now, I've heard for a while from bus drivers, the disciplinary issues and feeling like they're not getting supported like they should. Going back to Mr. Rivers, there's some accountability that needs to happen somewhere. So for them to be still complaining about disciplinary actions not being taken, and they've shared it with the principal and all, and nothing's happened, there's some accountability issues I see here that somebody is not following through on their complaints. So I don't know if we need to adopt, like we did, do something different with our policy, but there's an accountability. I mean, if they shared it with the principals and it not get resolved and it came back to the bus garage, then where does it go? I mean, who's responsible for it at that point to make a decision? Like, it has to go to somebody. If it comes back to the bus garage, then the bus garage should go to somebody else. Is that not happening? Or is our principals not coming back to the bus garage? And and if this is a constant complaint, again, where is accountability? Who is responsible for it? I don't, if either one of you can answer, do you know who should be accountable for that?
Well, if you follow the chain of command, it would go from Ms. Hill's direct supervisor would be Ms. James Davis, and then I'm Ms. James Davis's direct supervisor. But it would, you go back to the principal and you have the specific issue and say, has this been turned in? And then you get an answer to that. And then if there's no action, then you ascertain, well, why? If there is action or if there's an alternative action, then why not? I can share, when I was a bus supervisor at a school level, my only assistant principalship, and then sometimes as a principal, it's a difficult call to make sometimes because, believe it or not, sometimes parents don't believe us when we say, your child has done this. And cameras don't necessarily show everything. I think the bus drivers would agree that you can't, the camera sometimes shows something, sometimes it doesn't, right? Yeah, and sometimes the camera's not always reliable, particularly with mask compliance, right? And sometimes a kid will walk by you and has the mask on. And then you're driving and then the mask comes down and you don't necessarily see that because, but what worked more often than not with parents, with me, and we'd have to talk with individual principals because I think everybody in here would agree it's not appropriate to address anybody individually, about something like this, particularly if they're not here in the room. I would often tell a parent sometimes in a difficult conversation, well, I'm not trying to use scare tactics, but I'd rather call you and tell you your child is removed from the bus for 3 days than to call you and tell you there's been a bus accident. And this is about safety. That was the argument that I used the most. And sometimes the cameras were very helpful. Sometimes the cameras, because I used to tell my bus drivers, and I think they would agree, I don't think I'm keeping any secrets from you. The camera not only sees what most kids do, it also sees what drivers do. So if drivers, I think it really protects everybody. I think it comes down to individual communication with the principal. And in many cases, it's the assistant principal. So if nothing's happening and we think that it ought to, we being driver / Ms. Hill, then there should be conversation between the school administrator and Ms. Hill. Now, the principal reports directly to me. So if there's no satisfaction from that conversation, then it's incumbent upon me, once I'm told, to have a conversation with a principal. But it kind of follows the chain that way. So I don't know where it's stopping. I haven't been informed of a specific incident, okay? Because it's hard to, when you use a shotgun approach, like we've got a principals meeting tomorrow. We meet with principals every week. We started that last week. Every week, we meet with nurses every week, virtually, but we meet every week. And we'll certainly raise this issue, but with the shotgun approach, sometimes that doesn't work. Pardon the use of the term shotgun, because everybody thinks, well, gee, it's not me, it's somebody in this group, but it's not me. That's why we need to have a specific incident that we can follow up on a specific incident. And then, quite frankly, it sounds like to me, we certainly have the backing of the board, because the truth be known, sometimes parents don't call. It's funny. Parents really don't call superintendents very much. They call you. And then I've been in situations, not here, okay, but I've been in situations where board members would call me and say, well, so-and-so called me and their little Johnny got put off the bus for 3 days or kicked off the basketball team or whatever. And I just know that that can't be true because I've known this guy for 50 years or whatever. Obviously we're going to need some backing because not just from my office, which you certainly will have, but also from this board, because you've publicly said, we're going to certainly back our bus drivers and we want to do that, but we also want to get it right. So we would ask for the paperwork. And if you're not getting what you think you need, then you let Ms. Hill know. And then Ms. Hill can go to the school level and see what the deal is. And then from Ms. Hill, and if Ms. Hill's not satisfied, then she can go to Ms. James Davis. And if Ms. James Davis, now I've known her for forever, and I know she handles things. So I'm confident that relatively little would even get to me, but if she needed my assistance, she would certainly have it. And if we needed to, we would have a conversation at the school level, because that's the only way it's going to make it better. And it's not attacking anybody. It's working together to make things better. Attacking, and I'm not saying anybody's doing that, but because you feel passionate about it and you care about the kids being safe and you care about your jobs and just as we all do, but that's the only thing that's going to make it better. And I think I know we can. It's just going to take that, like you said, communication. And just something you have to constantly work on. So, if we're made aware of something very specific, we'll certainly follow up on it. But I'll have conversations with individuals about it, after this meeting to be sure that we close whatever gaps we have and make this better pretty quickly. But we might have some unhappy people for a while, and that's okay.
That's part of the job. Yeah, but that's what I said. If they've been complaining for so long
Sure,
of
I
the
hear it.
same issue,
I get it.
then the ball has to be dropped somewhere. Let's
get
find
it.
out where it is, to pick the ball up and just keep it going. So that's
I
what
get
I'm
it. Well, we don't want that. Well, children don't run the school district, the adults do. So we'll work on that. We're not perfect, but we'll certainly work on it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the personalized, again, thank you, Ms. Hill. Personalized Education Committee with Ms. Pereza.
Thank you. We have the Title I plan. Mr. Burt Lane is going to present to us.
Good evening, Chair Warden, Vice Chair Pereza, Dr. Ingram, board members, and guests. I come before you this evening to present the Title I plan, and we are asking that action be taken on this tonight. We have to submit this to the Department of Public Instruction by the end of the month. On the first slide, there are several people that I have given a shout out to. This is not a Burt Lane plan. There were several people who were integral in writing this plan and many stakeholders. Next slide, please, Dexter. There are several requirements that have to be met before the Title I plan can be submitted to the Department of Public Instruction. There's private schools have to be consulted. We reached out to all of the private schools in the area via certified mail and several emails. None of the private schools indicated that they wanted to participate in the Title I process. We are required to have stakeholder meetings. We have had those with principals, instructional coaches, teachers, parents, directors, and paraprofessionals across the district. Advertising of the plan is required. We have placed 3 ads in the Daily Advance for people to be able to make appointments to go over the plan. Of course, we would be delighted to show the plan to anyone upon request. It is a public document. There are 6 goals in the plan, and I'm not going to read them all. You have them. There's a handout in your packet. It looks like this if you guys can see it. But the goals deal with improving instruction, professional development, parent engagement, new teacher support, and supporting at-risk populations within the district. The plan, the template that the state provides is a little bit difficult sometimes to understand. So I have broken it down by the different titles that are covered under the plan, and I will go over each of those titles with you. Under Title I, which is academic achievement, Title I pays for 11.5 positions in classrooms to help reduce class size. We purchased Canvas, which is the instructional management system in the district. We work with something called the Innovation Project, which superintendents work with, and it provides a wealth of information for them as well as resources for the district. We purchased Google Suites, which helps with Google Meetings and various different tools for Google for our teachers. Title I also provides improvement science for our schools to participate in, and that's a way to look at problems and solve them within your school. We purchased Title I crates, which is what we use. It's kind of like an electronic file cabinet, so when we have audits, the auditors are able to find the information that they need much easier. And we do supplies and materials for small group instruction. We also partially fund, and that's not on the slide, a McKinney-Vento liaison position for the district. And we pay for excess transportation for those students and several other things. And this list is not exhaustive. These are the main things, but the way that the plan is written, we write it kind of broadly so that other things can be added as needed. Under Title II, we pay for 4 teacher positions. We help fund a principal academy to grow our administrators within the district. We provide professional development. We pay for workshop expenses, subs for this, and more supplies and materials. Title III, which is language acquisition, we pay for a full-time teacher assistant, and we pay for supplies and materials to support the teachers and the students in that program. Title IV, student support and academic enrichment. We pay for half of the salary for an attendance counselor within the district. We pay a percentage of curriculum associates. We pay for supplemental STEM supplies that go into many of the schools for the already existing STEM labs. This is where a lot of our social and emotional learning is paid for. Out of this pot of money, we support the Exceptional Children's Department with several programs and things that we buy for them. We also, Zello comes out of this, which helps with career planning, and it also has social and emotional learning components in that program as well. Then we have RLIS, which Kelly Cowell is one of the main users of this fund. It supports our beginning teachers. So it works with teacher recruitment and retention and BT support. We pay mentors stipends because we recognize the hard work that they do, and it helps us retain our teachers. We also provide supplies and materials a few times a year for our beginning teachers. We help fund some celebrations for them. We partner with ECU and ECSU. Coaching is provided and professional development, as well as we have a grow our own program where we encourage TAs within the district to continue their education so that hopefully they will become teachers within the district. Kelly also provides technology, SIBME, and other technology devices for her beginning teachers. They partner with East Carolina for something called Immersion, which is a virtual setting where you can bring a teacher in and there are avatars in a classroom and you can set the level of difficulty for that. So that's a really good tool. And she's also developed a professional library using these funds to help people pass the state testing that they are required to pass. And I know that was not as exciting as the bus presentation, but you're still awake. So I'm glad I didn't lose you there. So are there any questions?
Thank you.
Do we
Okay.
have a recruitment opportunity at any time?
Are you referring to, I'm
Like
not
a
sure, Ms. James Davis?
visit or a fair or anything like that as far as recruitment? Do we have anything coming up? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And again, we are asking that action be taken on this item.
Other questions for Mr. Lane? Thank you, Mr. Lane. I know it takes a lot of work to
Thank
get
you.
this done. Thank you.
Would you like for us to go ahead and take action on that now or wait until my committee's finished?
You can wait until your committee's finished. Aren't we going to take action on something else that's being presented?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll just wait.
Okay, now we have Dr. Amy Spencer presenting State Remote Learning Plan 21-22.
Good evening, Board Chair Warden, Vice Chair, and Committee Chair Pereza, Interim Superintendent Ingram, board members, colleagues, and guests. I come before you this evening to present the remote instruction plan for approval to submit to the state by October 1st. Session Law 2021-130 states that a remote instruction plan must be submitted to the state in order to use remote instruction days. This plan has to be submitted by July 1st. Since the legislation was passed after that date, they have given all districts in the state until October 1st to submit their remote instruction plan. The remote instruction plan is different than the virtual instruction plan that you voted on last week. The legislation states that remote instruction means instruction delivered to students in a remote location outside of the school facility, whether synchronously or asynchronously. Public school units may use up to 5 remote instruction days or 30 remote instruction hours when schools are unable to open due to severe weather conditions, energy shortages, power failures, or other emergency situations, and may use that time towards the required instructional days or hours for the school calendar. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction communicated that shifts to remote instruction due to COVID emergencies will not be counted toward the 30 instructional hours mentioned in the legislation. So the remote instruction plan provides a detailed framework for delivering quality remote instruction to students for the upcoming school year and information on the number of remote instruction days or hours used in the prior school year to satisfy instructional requirements when applicable. The plan you have before you details the remote instruction plan for ECPPS during those remote days as mentioned. It is very similar to the one that you approved last year. The template is different. So where I had to write a narrative last year with my team for the remote instruction plan, they've made it a little bit easier. So they have check boxes as to how we are going to provide that instruction. So we utilize the information from the remote instruction plan that you voted on last summer for the following school year, 2021, and we have put that onto this. Additionally, at the end, it does have the number of remote instruction days that we used last year. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Dr. Spencer? Thank you.
And then I do have a follow-up update to the virtual learning for students with medical documentation. So Session Law 2021-130 allowed virtual learning as an option for districts. And this legislation did not give entitlement to virtual instruction to anyone with a request. The ECPPS board approved the virtual instruction as an option for those students and parents who have appropriate medical documentation. Due to limited staffing, limited slots in classes, and course availability, ECPPS will have more stringent criteria and processes for approval of students and parents with medical documentation moving forward. I just wanted to provide that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, Chair Warden, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Title I plan as presented by Mr. Burtley this evening and the state remote learning plan 2021-22 that was presented by Dr. Amy Spencer.
I've had a motion. I need a second from the floor.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Pam Perezza,
Yes.
Rodney Walton,
Yes.
Daniel Spence,
Yes.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
George Archuleta,
Yes.
Virginia Houston.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sawyer. Thank you, Ms. Perezza. Now we're going to move on to the Policy Code Committee. Ms. Houston, you're the chair of that one.
We have coming before us for action PC 01 and PC 02. Ms. Sawyer?
Thank you. Chair Warden, Vice Chair Perezza, Committee Chair Houston, Interim Superintendent Ingram, board members, and community. I come before you this evening to request approval of Policy 7510 and Policy 4231, 5021, 7263 as presented during committee meetings. I will review the specifics related to each policy for you as well as those in attendance. First, Policy 7510, Leave Policy, was updated at our August meeting to accurately reflect that sick leave and vacation leave are allowed to be taken in whole and half-day increments. However, the temporary requirement related to COVID-19 was not available in the last update shared with you. This policy now includes required language that removes the need for an employee to provide an employee health certificate to return to work and to follow the guidelines for meeting the criteria from NCDHHS and NCDPI for their return. This is a required policy update in adherence to state guidelines for COVID. Questions?
Ms. Ward, can I ask a question pertaining to something that was commented on? I know we're not.
What about the leave? About the
Yeah,
topic
but-
here?
Well, I didn't
As long as it's
understand.
on topic for,
Was
Yeah.
believe, I didn't understand the gentleman saying something about he couldn't take leave, is that correct? Something was wrong with his leave? Or did I misunderstand?
I'm not allowed to comment on a personal matter.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, that's why I asked.
I apologize for that, Mr.
No, it
Archuleta.
ain't your fault, that's why.
They can comment, but I'm not allowed to do so.
Who can comment?
I said the person can comment about their own leave situation, but I can't address that.
So if we ask the question as it pertains to the whole district,
And if it's leave related, I will ask Ms. James Davis to assist in answering that.
so maybe if you ask that question as it pertains to the whole district, a leave according to somebody who has COVID or something like that.
Well, I understood what you were saying.
Mhm.
I just,
I was trying to figure out.
No, we
the
can
question.
clarify, Mr. Archuleta. What are you asking me exactly?
I was trying to get your question answered. That's what I was trying to do.
well, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'll ask this, as Mr. Spence says,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that'll help clarify. I don't know.
So this particular policy update would just be about the return to work, where they would follow the NCDHHS and NCDPI guidance for that. Anything else leave-related would be Ms. Haynes or Ms. James Davis to respond.
I believe the gentleman who was speaking this evening was possibly, I'm not sure, again, like you said, he can only give that. I believe he may have been referring to the extended leave that was offered to staff
See, that's
last year, and then that is not in effect anymore this year.
That's where I was mixed up at. It could be missed.
I believe he was referring to additional leave that was given last year as related to COVID that is that correct? Rhonda James Davis is shaking her head. I mean, I understood him to be referring to the extended leave that was given last year. And then we no longer have that. And I believe that's what he's referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the policy before us for leave? Okay. Policy 4231, 5021, 7263 has been provided in compliance with Session Law 2021-130, specifically Section 10. Boards are now required to develop policies surrounding face coverings and to revisit said policy monthly. The policy before you was provided as an update from the NCSBA, which is the North Carolina School Boards Association, and has been reviewed and slightly amended by our board attorney, Mr. John Leidy. The addition from Mr. Leidy to the proposed policy includes a statement that provides for the superintendent to develop procedures and forms as necessary to determine whether an exemption for masking should be granted under this policy and applicable law. The policy will require board approval. The procedure and forms developed by the superintendent will not require board approval. They will be an administrative regulation. I request the board consider these policies for approval today and will answer any questions. So the
But
map,
I'm understanding it correctly, we are going to review this policy each month.
yes, I was just about to clarify that. So this will come before the board each month.
That'll be up to the superintendent, right?
No, as we have, as a board, we have to review it.
You have to every month.
I understand that, but does he write it and we review it, or do we write it together somehow?
Well, a lot of times, every time, Mr. Archuleta, something says that the superintendent shall, sometimes it means that I would have a heavier hand in it than others. A lot of times it's referring to superintendent and staff. It just uses the term superintendent. I mean, I have done some of that work.
That's fine.
Oddly, I've done it more as an assistant rather than as a superintendent, but that's kind of how that works. But we are required to review it monthly.
Yes.
And Mr. Archuleta, the policy is developed, or it has been developed, and it's before you this evening. The only addition to that would be the forms and the regulations from the superintendent for determining any exemptions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the policy 7510, 4231, 5021, 7263 with regard.
A motion, I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Pam Pereza,
Yes.
Rodney Walton.
Yes.
Daniel Spence.
Yes.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
George Archuleta.
Yes.
And Virginia Houston.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. And now I'm going to turn to Dr. Williams, who will take us into closed session.
The board will go into closed session for the purpose of considering personnel actions that involve employees of this board as allowed by NC Statute 143 to 318-11A6.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call.
Second.
Pam Perezza,
Yes.
Rodney Walton.
Yes.
Daniel Spence.
Yes.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
George Archuleta.
Yes.
Virginia Houston.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Take a brief break.